What is going on, folks? Welcome back. Today we are once again dogfighting my friend who is a real active NATO fighter pilot. Now, he would like to remain anonymous, so we need to respect that. I can't really tell you much other than the fact that he flies a powerful 4th generation fighter, although I will not say for which Air Force and for which nation, but you're just gonna have to believe me. Now, a number of things have crept up in the comments in my previous video, so before we get into this dogfight, which is going to be me and the Su-27, which I absolutely love flying, especially with my force feedback stick, and my friend in the F-18 this time. Now, a number of things really need to be addressed before we get into it. In my previous video, where I have been dogfighting him in the F-16 versus me in the MiG-29, the armchair enthusiasts went absolutely ballistic in the comments, because in that video, which by the way you can check out in the top right hand corner of your screen, I was actually dominating for a while, and although I did lose the fight in the end, and we both made a bunch of mistakes, which, you know, it's always a learning experience and it's always fun, a lot of you in the comments have went absolutely ballistic, saying that your taxpayers' money isn't going where it should because a real fighter pilot isn't dominating a DCS player. Now, that is something that I really want to address today, because, I mean, I didn't realize that people have such a huge disconnect between reality and a computer game, right? And although it's a simulator, absolutely, let me explain why a really, really good fighter pilot who is an absolute ace in real life will, you might be Eric Hartman for all I know, but you will not beat the best DCS BFM player. As a matter of fact, DARPA, a couple of years ago, developed the best AI that they could put together for an F-16 and put it into a video game. They then selected a fighter pilot, a real good fighter pilot from real life, I believe he was an F-16 guy as well, and a DCS player, and they pitched them against the AI, the best AI that DARPA had to offer. And the real fighter pilot lost. The DCS player, I think, was maybe lost 1 or 2 fights, but then won against the AI, which the real fighter pilot never did. Now, what does that tell you? Well, it tells you a number of things. DCS and real life are not the same. Yeah, there are things which are similar, but think of it this way. A Navy SEAL or a Special Forces guy playing Arma or Battlefield is going to lose against the best Arma or Battlefield player who sits on his sofa day in and day out and plays that game, right? Now, you might say, okay, well, that's not a fair comparison because a real Navy SEAL would be using his stamina and his strength. He'd be holding a real weapon, not a mouse. True. However, a lot of the same things apply with DCS and a real aircraft. I mean, yes, you can have the best simulator setup, and you might even have VR for a bit of depth perception, but the reality is real life has real Gs. The other thing you've got to remember that real fighter pilots, they use cues, other cues, visual cues, which you might not see here. They might have seat of the pants feeling. Never mind about the fact that real G-forces in the real airplane play such a huge role that any DCS player put into a real fighter jet will be defeated in an instant by or even a newbie fighter pilot. And you got to remember that a real fighter pilot will do a lot of his training in a training environment in real life, which will have like a 1,000-foot bubble, which is something that DCS players will never have. You could be inches away from your opponent in a rolling scissors, and that would never be allowed in real life. Therefore, you know, there's situations that a real fighter pilot just wouldn't experience in a real-life environment versus DCS. Then there's the fact that in real life, you know, they obviously fear for their life, whereas DCS players don't. So you might have some things that real fighter pilots would do based on their training to try and survive, whereas, you know, DCS players might take a gamble and kill you because they got lucky. Then you got to remember that real fighter pilots only do a certain amount of BFMing per year in real life versus a DCS player who can spend 10 hours a day BFMing every single day on the servers, and obviously they're going to be unbelievably good at that. But then you have to remember the real fighter pilots their job is not just about BFM. Their job is about so much more that any DCS player will never be able to comprehend, which is, you know, there's BVR, there's being able to lead a formation, there's planning, there's situational awareness, trying to process a huge amount of data and information at the same time and make the correct decisions, a huge amount of variety of mission profiles that need to be done, and so on and so forth. And then there's the fact that in DCS, a lot of fighter pilots, including my friend, doesn't fly the same jet that they do in real life. So it's a little bit of fun for them. It's just a way to blow off some steam, try different things, try something new, maybe even get yourself into a situation that you wouldn't try in real life, just for the heck of it, just for the fun of it, and see what you can make of it. And obviously then there's the fact that you just don't know the airplane anywhere near as well as the one that you fly at work. So it is completely incorrect to draw any conclusions as to how good a fighter pilot is in real life based on his performance in DCS. So I just want to make that very, very, very abundantly clear, because a huge portion of the comments to my previous video showed that people just don't seem to be aware of any of that. So anyway, without further ado, let's finally get into this dogfight with me and the Su-27 and my friend in the F-18. Roll the tape.
We have 2 good engine starts. You're clear to disconnect the headset. We'll see you on the left with the pin. Thanks a lot.
So here we are then, merging at 760 kph in the Su-27, just above the corner speed, diving down, still full throttle at this point, pilot starting to gray out. I don't have a particular game plan at this point. I'm just wanting to see what he's going to do, so I'm not sure if I'm going to do a 2-circle, 1-circle. Just want to see what he's doing. Now, because the G's are so high, I'm about to black out. I kill the throttle, go back on the throttle to try and get that corner speed back, and obviously right in the verge of passing out here, but we just make it out fine. And great effects from Eagle Dynamics, by the way, about graying out. For anybody who's grayed out in real life, or was, you know, kind of knows what it's like, this is exactly what it's like when you pull G's in real life. It's pretty cool. So come in here, and he reverses that and is trying to turn that into a rolling scissors. Now I try and go in a bit of a lag pursuit, but I don't pull hard enough. I really should have pulled a lot harder there as I took the snapshot. The result is that we are now in a rolling scissors, pretty neutral at this point, but for some reason he extends on the down leg, and I think that gives me a good opportunity here for a snapshot. Some of you will say why I don't have locked up in the with a gun sight with a pipper, and you're probably right. This particular point I could have done that. I have a lot more energy than he does, as you can tell, and just if he could have just kept pulling back into me and done a little loop, we could have been back to neutral, but I think the Hornet ran out of energy. It just doesn't have the power of the Su-27. So take a snapshot there. You see I'm using 2 hands on the stick. That's just because I'm using a full force feedback stick, so we've been dogfighting for a little while, as it just barely deck saves that above the trees. Very, very low energy state for the Hornet now. Took a snapshot there in the sun, couldn't really see what was going on, so missed that one. But with a full force feedback stick, you know, we've been fighting for a while, so my hands are a little bit tired, and, you know, the forces are not the same as a regular stick. In here, I didn't want to take a snapshot, trying to get in behind him, trying to maintain that position, but he reads me really well, pulls into me. Still lower energy state than I have. At this point, I lost him in the canopy bow, so that's why I just couldn't. I should have pulled in harder and try and take that shot, but just lost him in the canopy bow, so yeah, well, that one didn't work out. I have a lot more energy than he does, even though we're still both very low energy states, but I'm just maintaining that, and I finally shoot him out the sky. So the Su-27 does have a system for the pilot which prevents him from pulling too far back on the stick and exceeding the critical alpha, although using the override Y key, I believe, that I've got mapped to my pinky switch on my joystick, I can override that and get a little bit more alpha out of the airplane. The Hornet's incredibly good at high alpha, but so is the Su-27. For anybody interested, the Su-27 was loaded to 40% fuel and the Hornet was at 60%. So in this particular fight, as you could tell, I more or less dominated from the beginning, and I could tell you that certainly didn't happen for a large portion of other fights that we did. I certainly have lost plenty of times, and probably more times than I won, against my friend. But it just goes to show you that, you know, real fighter pilots, they are just, you know, put into a DCS environment, they are not the flying gods that they would be in real life against a DCS player, and that is really important to understand. That is the way it is. And it's a similar analogy to a 7-year-old kid being able to land an airliner better in Microsoft Flight Simulator than a captain with 20,000 hours in real life. Does that make the kid better at being an airline pilot than the 20,000 hour captain? No, it doesn't. But that's the reality of a computer game versus reality. Although, having said that, the kid probably does have a lot of good potential to become a good pilot as he grows up. So, with that said, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please smash the living daylight of the like button if you've enjoyed the video, and otherwise, I shall catch you in the next one. Adios.